Hello everyone, and welcome to MUP Lore Warpath Edition. Yes, we are actually starting a new series here on the MUP kind of team, which is all talking about the Warpath lore, the same way we do with panel lore. And with me, I've got a new, well, not new voice, for a new voice to having a series on MUP, Claudio. Hey Claudio, how are you?
Hi Dave, thanks for having me.
Oh, that's all right. This show is going to be a little bit different than what we do with panel lore, because I'm not going to be... Well, my alarm's going off. That was awkward. Anyway, I'm not going to be the one teaching you guys or me about the lore. It's actually got to be Claudio. So that's going to be a relief for me, because I talk way too much, and I'm pretty sure everyone's sick of my voice by this point. But we can actually dive into Warpath lore, which, to be honest, is... It's something that I don't think a lot of people really know about, and also there's a lot of actually good nuggets of lore in the Warpath universe that I really think people are missing out on, especially when it comes to the type of different races that are within the world and within the universe, I should say. Would that be fair to say there, Claudio?
Yeah, exactly. I think first of all, probably I will be talking way more than you, or even the same, so we will see how that will work out.
Alright.
But I think the universe, the Warpath universe, really is something a really interesting take on a science fiction universe. We will go into that a bit later in detail. And I think many people, the newish Firefight edition drew a lot of people in there because of the slick rules. Deadzone is always a good game, and maybe people who play Halo will see that the engine really works and will try out Deadzone. But the universe itself, sometimes it's in the background, not in a good way, because people just see the really good rules of the games and don't really deep dive into the lore that much, which is a shame. And I think for science fiction, there are a few universes out there that everybody knows, and it's easier to just think in their terms of those other universes and just play your games, have fun, and relate to the other world building aspects. So I think, looking at this Warpath universe will have its benefits, and there are really cool stories, really cool tropes, different takes, some similar takes to other worlds, and I think we will see that it's a really interesting universe.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of comparisons to other universes, because you can't really avoid that after this many years into human society of creating stories and all that. You're always going to have those crossovers. I think
for sure.
With this universe, the Warpath universe, I mean, we call it the Warpath universes because that's how it started. It started as Warpath, and now it's evolved into Deadzone, Firefight. We've also got Star Saga thrown in there. We've got Deadzone. Dreadball, I should say, thrown in there as well. I mean, I'm holding a book right now, The Last Hurrah, and that's some really good lore dumping for Dreadball as well. So there's so many different avenues you can go down with this universe. It's not just war on the battlefield. We actually are talking about sport, lore as well, which is quite interesting. There's some of that lore that's in the Dreadball season books, that there's some really, really cool stuff, and the races that are introduced there, which a lot of the races we've seen first time in Dreadball, are kind of expected to see in the wider scale of the universe in the games going forward as well. So I'm looking forward to diving into all of that, discovering all these different races, and actually just exploring it a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. I think two funny things about the name Warpath. Right now, there isn't really a war game called Warpath. I mean, Epic Warpath is coming out this year, and there was an old edition, but which isn't supported right now. So, in the moment of this recording, the Warpath universe doesn't really have a Warpath war game. So that's a funny aspect to it. And the other thing is that even though war is in the Warpath name, as you mentioned, it's not only about war. It's a living universe where conflicts happen all the time. I mean, we're playing most of the games are about the conflicts, but it's also a livable universe where you just can go in there and see how do the people fare, how do they, what do they do, how do they interact. There is trade among species, races, factions, and so on. It's not all about killing each other or making a rebellion or whatever. So, as you already mentioned, I think Dreadball is one of the big points where you can really see it's more about the universe and the species, races overall, rather than how do they fight each other.
And on saying that, we are getting a refresh to Dreadball. We don't know exactly what that is, but that is also coming back as well. So, funny enough, we're getting two possible new games. I don't know if it's new, but refresh to Dreadball and Epic Warpath coming in. So we're going to have that lore on top of anything they do with Deadzone and Firefight, which Deadzone could see a bit of action now that we've got Halo out there, and that's drawing some new eyes onto the game.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm really looking for the Dreadball one. I don't know what it is, of course.
We're going to ignore that. We are ignoring the AI generated image because that was a big controversy of the fact they used an AI generated image for it, which the justification behind that doesn't really make a lot of sense because, I mean, what's the point? I mean, you've got so much great art that's already out there even just from the Warpath universe. It's just anyway.
I think
we'll ignore that.
It's just it's maybe something that isn't out in 2 months. So they are just doing the art and so on. Yeah, it's just a little teaser. Let's get excited that something is coming for Dreadball. And as you already mentioned, I'm not a Dreadball player per se, but going through the books, seeing all the tidbits about the races, planets, and so on, it's amazing what is hidden there. And I think one of the reasons we're doing this is to get like an overview for this episode of the universe, but overall also go into the maybe not that well-known things that are hidden away, like events, species, and so on, and to get really to see that it's not only on the surface, like a few races you might know, but that there is much more hidden lore that makes this universe exciting.
Yeah, and I think once when you dive into it and go deep dives, like I think Orcs is going to be an interesting one of explaining more riders and how they really work, because everyone's going to compare these orcs with other orcs, right? And that's just the same with everything. You're going to compare Lord of the Rings orcs with orcs in Panathor or in Warhammer. You're going to do the same here. So I think it'll be really cool to dive in what makes these guys a bit unique. Are they as chaotic as we normally see in other space lore, what orcs actually are, or are they a little bit more civilized, a little bit more together? And it'll be cool to dive into that history, because there is some history in there in the timeline. So I think there's so many different elements. So I guess the first off question, Claudio, is if you were going to tell someone what the Warpath universe is all about, what would you say? We'll start at the very beginning.
So the easiest and the hardest question all in one. I think I would say it's a dystopian science fiction universe, with a bit of a cyberpunk flair where humanity is spread across the stars and corporations rule over humanity. Of course, there are problems that the humans have to face, and many other races live in this universe, and the interaction between them being hostile or through trade, because corporations want to trade, makes it so unique. I think money is the defining factor in Warpath, and that's makes it a bit sadly relatable to maybe our contemporary world and situation. Hyper-capitalism at its finest.
Did you ever play Outer Worlds by any chance?
No, I haven't. I know it, but I haven't played it myself.
I've recently just played Outer Worlds, so if any listeners out there, if you played Outer Worlds, that corporation aspect, and then add in war, and conflict, and I think it really kind of, like, for me, kind of summarizes what this whole world is about. It's definitely corporations, and it's there's so many corporations. I try to catalog them once in the wiki, and it's got very, very long, so I don't know. There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, now that you've mentioned it, I've worked on you've set up the wiki, and I've worked on the wiki quite a lot last summer. And one goal I had so many goals. It's a rabbit hole. But going through the corporations and trying to find out the little tidbits hidden here and there, it's a vast number of names. Some are more, some have more background, some less. But I think that's okay, because another thing about the Warpath universe, which is really also a big selling point for many people, is that it's rather open. You can have your own little story in there, fitting the narrative, because it's a broad spectrum, and it's not very narrow, where it's either grimdark or Western and science fiction. So you can do most of the time whatever you like in there, and it still fits. So. Yeah,
and you hear some of that with Mupp stories, of they dive into kind of that kind of side of it, that it's so wide and up for interpretation, and there's a lot that hasn't been, you could say, written or told yet, that, you know, as players we can fill in the gaps, and I think that's really cool as well. And just because we're benched in the wiki, we are slowly migrating the old wiki that we started, and Claudio has been actually probably the only other person really that's been fully active in that space. We're going to move it over to warpathuniversewiki.com. So we're going to have its own wiki. The reason why I want to move away from the fandom wikis is they're full of ads, and also there is a bit of trepidation of that suddenly they can just bring it down at any moment, and you can see that with some of the job cuts they have. So we are trying to migrate it. So if you want to help out, we do actually have our own Discord for the wikis themselves. But you also can just reach out to me if you want to help, or even just sign up to the wiki while we migrate everything. Because me and Claudio do these episodes, we want to also enhance the wiki as we're doing our research and getting ready for the episode, which is really my intention of why I'm here. I might not be as versed into the lore as Claudio, but I want to be. I want to get more invested in this lore, because I think the Dreadball lore got me very invested in wanting to know more about the Warpath universe.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the thing that started in the wiki, if I recall it. So
yeah, it did.
I think Dreadball is. We talked about it already, but just a short note. I think Dreadball is something rather unique, especially for a science fiction setting. I mean, we've seen it with Corvus Belli having also a sports game out there besides Infinity. So there is that, but still, Dreadball was so defining early on for the universe, and I think Mantic did well going from their early Warpath, having Dreadball giving life to the universe and not only death in that way. So, yeah. But we've already talked about Dreadball. So.
yeah. I mean, there's so much to talk about, especially when this is only supposed to be our intro episode. So we got to find us just kind of jumping everywhere, because there's so much we want to talk about, and keeping it structured is often a mess, especially with me. I've got ADHD, so I'm always all over the show as it is. So it's up to Claudio to keep me on track.
I'm the one that loves hearing himself talk. So yeah, quite a team.
There you go. There we go. All right. So I'm going to ask some questions that I had when I first dived into the universe. But you know, these aren't simple answers, but this is just a way of introducing people that may not be as familiar with the lore and only care more about the game than the lore. So I guess, Claudia, can you explain about the spheres I always hear about, of something being the fifth sphere or the fourth sphere? I can't even say sphere properly, but sphere as in circle.
Yeah. So there are 5 spheres. They are named from the first to the 5th sphere. They have simple, sometimes nicknames. Yeah, it's rather simple. And I think, as you mentioned, comparisons. I want to use a comparison right now, right here. Because I said it's a bit of a cyberpunk universe, but not always. So another inspiration, I think, which also is a known concept, is maybe from Star Wars, where you have the Outer Rim and the core worlds and the expansion areas and so on. And we have something close to it in the Warpath Universe too, because the first sphere are the core worlds, if you want to. So humanity spread.
So is that Earth as well?
Earth.
So I'm pretty sure
Yes.
Earth is included, eh? Yeah.
Yes, it's about a few hundred, and I think 150 light years across, and it's the first expansion, the first diaspora from Old Earth is the first sphere. So Old Earth is in there, but it doesn't. It's not really told in there what really happened to Old Earth, but I guess if we're going with hyper-capitalism and big corporations, Old Earth didn't survive that. So
we ruined it, guys. We've screwed it.
We ruined it. It's the way it goes. So humanity had to reach out to the stars. They had the technology, and the core worlds is really where the seat of power for humanity lies. And as you can imagine, if money is like one of the biggest players in this universe, the first sphere stands for luxury. If you live there, you're wealthy above everything else. But also the political center obviously is also there. So the first encounters with alien species happened in the first sphere. It was met with violence from the humans, I think, but that's something we will surely go into.
Well, that's typical. We do that all the time, humanity.
Yeah,
just violent.
So, it's just if you expand, if you want to have new space for yourself, it will be that way. So that's what I meant when I said it's rather relatable from the story, because it's really look in the dystopian future from now on with the usual flaws we have. So there were the new world wars, but humanity won in a way, and the first sphere, the core worlds, were established. Then we go out to
the second sphere.
The second sphere, it's always going on, more expansion happening, and the second sphere, the outer core, how it's called, is still a rather luxurious area. The planets overall are a bit less developed than the core, and so social
it kind of works
inequality.
Like a class system kind of thing. So the first core is like the highest class, and then they kind of just get poorer as they go out, as they expand out.
Exactly. Usually, you won't find beggars in the first sphere. There might be workers and so on that are used for sure, but the normal people, let's say, don't live there. The second sphere is a bit something else, because there you have more like normal working people besides the super rich corporations and their CEOs and managers and so on. So the second sphere is more of the place you want to be. You want to like work hard, and you get the Warpath dream, if you want, is where you want to land in the second sphere, because the core worlds is just out of reach for normal citizens. And I'm talking about citizens and humans a lot, and I think this is the point, or also political center, this is the point where I should mention one institution or one name, and that's the GCPS.
There we go, that's the
Galactic Co-Prosperity Sphere. We have sphere in there too. That's like the human, or the main human faction, if you want.
So just to pause there. So the GC, was it G? I always get this wrong.
Yeah.
GCPS. So is that the governing body of all corporations, or is that just what humanity is referred to as?
It's more about what humanity is referred to, because you have it in the name. It's about prosperity, so it's about all the corporations together. And it's governed by the Council of Seven, which is a government body consisting of 7 persons, the 7 CEOs of the biggest corporations.
Okay.
So, in a way, the biggest corporations also rule the whole GCPS.
Okay.
It's still a rather free market system, so the rules, there are not that many rules. You can do many things as a corporation if you have the money. But the council is, and I think it's in the lore you could see that rather well, is trying to seize more and more power. And one of the biggest power plays is also one of the factions in the game, the Enforcers.
Yes.
So,
we'll go into that second once we finish the spheres, because that's my next question after this is about. In fact, because factions confusing me, and I'll explain that in a sec. But all right, so that's the second sphere. Second sphere is sort of like, you could say, the next tier up in terms of wealth. You could say like middle class kind of hitting there, and I'm guessing it just continues. So what's the third sphere all about?
The third sphere, my God.
Saying the word sphere is actually very hard. I don't know if people realize that.
The third sphere, also called the new space. It's going outwards to just beyond the second sphere, and it's more regionalized. So there are more regions that tend to themselves, maybe even having like little nations spread out. So the farther you go away from the center, from the core, the more open it gets for the people to live in there, or also for people or corporations to do their own thing.
So more self-governed, you could say.
Yeah, more self-governed. Exactly. That's the point. And I think the third sphere can both be more like the second or then the fourth sphere. So there are planets, or also clusters of planets that are really industrialized. Some that are like with big sprawling cities, with high technology. And the third sphere is maybe one of the biggest spheres, because they are now in the timeline settled for centuries. Their life is going on. This is the point where people really want to make a name for themselves, make big profits, to then go into the second sphere and have a life they usually can't reach.
So basically, if you want to be anybody and move up, you want to be in this third sphere.
Yes, that's where you want to start, in the best place. So, and the third sphere is also, there are more aliens here, more species than in the second and first. Here you have more contact with other also factions in the game, but also other big players in the universe, like the Forge Fathers, for example. So here also the GCPS came maybe a bit to a halt, because the expansion had to consider a few other things, like maybe other empires in their way that aren't just like localized ones, but bigger ones. So the Forge Fathers, or the interactions. The Terratons too. But I think the Forge Fathers maybe were the biggest.
Yeah, they're the biggest. And one thing I discovered as I was going through the lore is that there's something called the Terraton Empire, which is actually sounds like could be a faction later on as well. Just reading through some of the lore, they're basically waiting to rebel against the GC.
Yes. GCPS. Yeah, I think it's a good point, because looking at the Terraton, there is obviously, as you mentioned, still an empire there, and it's in the third sphere. And something which is really interesting in this universe is that the humans don't control everything. The GCPS doesn't control everything or subjugate everything or eradicate. So many of the alien species go down another route, and the GCPS tries to make good deals for them. So they come, they see another species, they come to the planet, and then they show the shiny core. So they say, "Look at us. We are we have the technology. We are advanced. We want prosperity for all. We want a better life for everyone." And how you can achieve that is that you can trade. So a big intergalactic trade with all the corporations seems like a good thing for the alien races, empires, and so on, nations that they encounter. And many of them get, at the first glance, good deals from the GCPS, where they can get the technology and so on. But as always, it's just a scam. So in the end, it's a hard word, but it's some kind of enslavement. Some people, some nations really get contracts where their planets are stripped for resources, for manpower, and so on, and they get incorporated into this GCPS. And
so basically, they get screwed over. They sign they basically sign their planet away accidentally, and by the time they realize it's too late.
So many of these species aren't conquered by force. Or by fighting, but are conquered by those
capitalism.
Treaties. Yeah, and that's always coming back. Why I said at the beginning, money is the big player in this universe. It's not about some kind of ideology, maybe, other than, if you want to call it ideology, that money can buy everything, and that's how the GCPS also expands. Yeah. And the bigger it gets, the more resources it has. The corporations have more resources. The corporations claim new worlds, so they are the ones trying to get more money out of the expansion. So it's not a centralized organization that tries to expand it, but if a new planet is found, corporations can try to claim it. They bid on the planets before they go there, so they spend money so that they can claim the planet, they can build the cities there, they can get the resources and so on, even if there is an indigenous, so that's a word, population there. Yeah. So they don't care. It's all in the background, and it's a
And I think you basically just explained the Rebs faction.
Yes, you said there may be rebellions, and as you can guess, there will be people and whole species, races who don't like this, who really hate the GCPS for their atrocities, for the screw over, and so where this kind of system and capitalism thrives, rebellion thrives on top of that. So there is another faction. They're the reps,
which has been teased about with the Mantic YouTube channel. Once it gets to a certain amount, they're going to possibly release some new models for the Rebs, which I'm looking really, because I think the Rebs is where you get so much more variation when it comes to races.
Yeah, I think the Reps were one of the 4 original factions for the Deadzone Kickstarter, for the first one, which is now over 10 years old, I think. And they were my favorite when I backed it back then. And they are, in my opinion, they are really what makes the Warpath universe, because it shows this this vast amount of races that live in there, that it's not always a centralized, the one empire versus the other empire, and they are all from the same species. Now, this is like the lived-in world. There are, in the GCPS, there aren't always only humans, there are many, many other species living there. And of course, they want their fair share. especially if the corporations destroyed or strip mined their planets. So for me personally, it's the faction that shows best what is maybe a core element of this universe. And yeah, you've mentioned there are teasers for new models. So.
Yeah, I hope they do bring it, and I think you're absolutely right. I think the Ribs is just a really good way of showcasing the diversity and the uniqueness of the universe that is Warpath. It's just a bit sad that they're kind of on the outs at the moment in terms of the model range and also just in terms of what's on the table. But
most of the models. Yeah, most of the models are now over 10 years old, with made from old PVC, and they aren't available anymore, which is sad, but in a way understandable, because they just are outdated. Yeah. So there is a social media follower campaign thing going on. You mentioned the YouTube channel where Mantic is trying to get to a social goal, and they promised to redo some or parts. They weren't very specific of the reps range. We will reach it, but I'm really, really looking forward to that point.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you haven't, just go like or subscribe to their YouTube channel just so we can see them, because I'm excited for them, because I actually do want to get into this universe, but I just don't really have one that's really faction that's gravitating me at the moment. A Ribs faction probably would. I think it would push me off the edge, just because after doing the wiki. And if you go on the wiki under the race page, or the races page, you can really see a gallery of all the races that we're talking about. And I think it's a really good snapshot of just showing you all the different colors and species that are in the world. And you will get some of the tropes. I mean, there are goblins, there are orcs, there are dwarves. You get some of the staples, but you can also dive into more like hobgoblins are in there. Gorgons was an interesting one. The Macedon. How do you say that? Yeah, Macedon.
I think Macedon. Yeah.
I think they're very unique as well, because they take a very kind of samurai, kind of very unique spin on kind of races that we're familiar with. There's the Crystallilians, which are really cool. There's the Ralarat, which are like frogs. There's a combination of kind of fish races. So you got the Sangar, which are the sharks, the Zeppelin, which is kind of more of a squid kind of I think a squid kind of race, and then there's the Siphoner, which is like a hammerhead type of race. So there's so many there, and there's probably even more that I haven't catalogued properly yet. But there's so much opportunity here.
There's so many, yeah, and I think it's a good mix of, as you mentioned, common tropes, where you see them, you see an orc-like dude, and you know that's an orc. You see a dwarf, you know it's a dwarf. But then again, there are so many unique races in there that it's a good mix. It's a good mix.
Yeah.
The Mantic Universe podcast. So much universe, so little time.
So let's continue on with the spheres, because we're nearly there. So now let's go to the fourth sphere.
The fourth sphere, the so-called expansion zone, and there are still new worlds found there. So it hasn't ended, unlike the first two-thirds sphere. So there are still unknown alien species and cosmic phenomena and so on that can be found there, and fortunes can be made and lives can be lost. So it's still it's maybe one of the biggest spheres for events to happen right now, because it's already established. There are corporations there, but there are also new frontiers that open up every now and then, where things can be found, where conflict can be found, where worlds can be exploited by corporations, so they want to go there. And that's something that's really interesting, because also one of the biggest enemies of the universe or humanity, or the humans, not humanity, are the plague. And
and the
plague is some kind of virus we will go into detail with that one for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a deep lore. Let's avoid that for now.
Yes, but the most outbreaks are here, because it's here the worlds are very populated, but it's still just nearly
not
through
tamed.
the aura.
It's untamed.
Yes, it's not tamed. It's still unknown in some parts. So it's here really, I think, is one of the most interesting ones, because everything gets together, and here everything can be possible. There can be mega cities on planets, and then there can be some Wild West feeling tea. So.
Oh, nice. All right, so now the fourth sphere, we're getting a little bit more wild. So what about the fifth sphere? What's the real big difference here?
This is really the wild west of the Warpath universe. The frontier, it's the expansion. The fifth expansion here is the one currently we're in. So this is mostly just really unknown space. There are many war zones here, because there are fightings over claims, even between corporations. There are more civil unrest from the reps, who can have their bases here and strike into the inner spheres from here. There are many alien races, artifacts, things that can cause conflict to the GCPS. More also really alien species like the chorus.
The chorus, those are weird.
Interesting,
they've got
weird
four
species.
Arms, that's
4 arms, 4 legs.
Yeah.
Yes, they can open up portals to other dimensions. So it's really weird stuff here, and it's the fifth sphere. There isn't really that well mapped out. So if you think about, if we want to take comparisons, if we think about the Outer Rim in Star Wars, or even Firefly, this is the feeling you get here. You can make big money here.
Yeah, I was going to say Firefly is a very good reference. Yeah, Firefly definitely.
Firefly is the feel you really get here, and it's about the corporations are influential everywhere, but here less so. Then again, corporations are so far away here, so if they want to do something here, they can do cover-ups rather easily. So maybe some of the militaries are a bit harsher than they would maybe be in the third or fourth sphere. So this is really where conflict lies, where you have the wargaming aspect coming out, where even species that maybe trade or have good trade relations fight over planets and trying to cover that up. It's here everything is possible, and if you're careless, you will die.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and summarize it, and you tell me if I'm wrong. So
yes.
First sphere, that's kind of Earth, just the high class, the richest people are there. And the second sphere, that was for like more of the middle class kind of class of people, not the billionaires, but more of the millionaires, so the ones in the middle. And
the middle class. Yeah, maybe I'd call it upper class at that point.
Upper class, yeah. I mean, it depends on the economy, right? Because like $1 billion in an economy of people that have trillions, you're not that rich, that kind of idea. So it could be that. And then the third sphere is more of you could say working class, the ones that are not dirt poor, that they're well off, that they've got their own house, I guess. I don't know, planets, or they could be mini planet owners. And then the next one, the fourth sphere, that's when people are just trying to get by. So people are trying to make as much money as they possibly can to get out, and trying to just use all the resources they can, because the planets are still pretty untapped. And then you got the fifth sphere, which is more the Wild West. Not a lot of people know what's going out there, but there's a lot more dangers, a lot more undiscovered kingdoms of empires and races and possibilities, and a lot more conflicts, you could say, of fighting.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool.
So, it's nothing completely new or groundbreaking, because you can imagine that at the core it's wealthier, and at the outer spheres it's more of a frontier. But it's still something. It has its unique flair because of the interaction of the corporations and the GCPS overall with all the alien encounters. And that's what I really like about it. And it's still a bit muddy sometimes. The third sphere there can be planets that are closer to the second sphere. In the fourth sphere there can be planets that are closer to the fifth sphere, like from population count and so on. So it's not set in stone how those planets are. If you want to have a bit of a newer colony in the fourth sphere, no problem. It gets harder to have a new colony in the second or third sphere, but it could be possible in a way. So that openness is something that it's that I like about the system. That it's again, everything's possible in a way.
Yeah, and also it's with noting that all the conflict happens probably in the fourth or fifth sphere. So a lot of the factions that we're talking about, they can be a little bit more savage. They can be a little bit more kind of, not, you could say, don't have the best equipment, like we're looking at the Rebs as well. And the spheres are just an area of space. It's not to say like, that's those spheres move at all. It's kind of like, I'd say it's kind of like if you look at the solar system, you've got the circle in the middle, and then you've got the bigger circle, and the bigger circle, and the bigger circle of all the planets going around. It's kind of like that. So,
yes.
I mean...
It's also a bit of an ellipse.
Yeah. It's a description of an area in space than anything with any kind of specific... You don't move into different spheres. You don't, if you're a planet in the third sphere, you don't move into the second sphere. It's just... that's just the description of your location, really.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we've done the spheres, we've kind of done the map. So I guess the last bit we'll talk about is really factions. Like, what are the players of the universe? Because I get a bit confused of, what's a faction Firefight and what's a faction in Deadzone. So where's the basically explain it to me like I'm five.
Okay, so the factions. We've talked about a few of them already because they are part of the universe, of course. So, but the factions in the Warpath universe can be quite diverse. And even in the factions themselves, they can be quite different. So let's start with the first one. We've already mentioned that, the GCPS. So the GCPS overall is the human empire, even for the lack for a better word. It's like the human spheres, the corporations, and so on. And every corporation, or the most of the bigger corporations, also have a private military. So there isn't the GCPS doesn't have a standing army overall, but every corporation has its own military. Because they go to the new worlds, they want to plunder, or they have treaties with other races, and they don't go well because the alien species find out that they are being screwed over. So you need a military presence. But there are also corporations who specialize in military or in warfare. So they can be hired to be used to maybe guard some planets or to end
be
some
the enforcers in a way. Not the enforcers. I shouldn't say enforcers because they're actually a faction. But they hire other factions to kind of be their muscle instead of themselves.
Yes. They are standing like mercenary corporations that you can hire. So the GCPS or the GCPS armies are quite diverse in that. But usually those are your human fighting forces. Some corporations use also aliens or more aliens in there, but on the tabletop you have your GCPS army. So usually many soldiers with special weapons to support them and armored support be it striders, so walkers, or in Firefight and bigger conflicts, tanks and hornets, so also flying equipment. So GCPS usually uses laser rifles and fight in big numbers, if you want.
So with the GCPS, do you see a bit of variation on the table when it comes to color schemes, I'm guessing? Is that something people see? Like, because you said, GCPS are corporations, so with their own armies. Do you see color scheme changes, or they typically use that kind of like that army kind of color, like the greens and the blacks?
The official greens for the army feel, I think, are rather spread, but I've seen many different colors. People don't tend to go too wild in really making a background for them, it seems. So again, we're back to the point where the lore could be used a bit more, because there are so many cool factions. There are examples for like winter fighting forces and so on. So and people have kit bashed. Tyler from Dreadpath Zone has kit bashed an awesome army with Northern Alliance bits from Kings of War to get that personalized feel. But I think most of the gamers are content with using them just as their human guys and gals. So hopefully at some point we will see a bit more variation, because we have one big corporation as another faction in there.
And what's that?
That's Maison Labs.
Oh, that's right, Maison Labs, yeah.
Yes, that's a faction that is one of the biggest corporations, and they also use human troopers, of course, because they are a GCPS corporation, but they also use other things, experiments, and so on. Maybe we just dive into them.
So Maison Labs is a good example of the corporations becoming the more individual factions and so forth, and seeing more of a divergence there. That's cool. I thought Maison Lab was completely separate, but knowing that they're linked, that's quite interesting.
No, actually, they are some kind of the bad guys. So if you, it's hard for me to say that the GCPS. All bad guys. Yeah. That's the point. So the GCPS are also the bad guys, but maybe Maison Labs are the
more
true,
bad guys.
Bad guys. Yeah. So they are the mad scientists experimenting with the plague, using mind control things on them, using cyborgs, having mad scientists experimenting with other aliens. So they are really the unhinged example of a corporation. And they are powerful, and they are still accepted in the GCPS. They aren't outsiders or thrown out or something like that. No. They are making power plays to get more influence in the GCPS. It's mostly the things the people don't see, but we know because we are fighting with or against them on the battlefield, on the tabletop. But most of the GCPS think they are a big corporation about improving health or other technologies. So
and Meta did that really good website as well during the event last year. They did that website, and that was really cool. I really like what they did there.
Yeah, in the wiki there is a link to it, and once it's maybe taken off, because usually it's all around for a year or so, there are also a few screenshots I've inserted there. So go check it out now if you're listening to it, because it's a cool take on this corporation, and we're selling that everything is good for you, but in the end it's again just a screw up. So
cool.
That is one of the bigger corporations that people know also. But there is another, if you want, third human faction in a way, or maybe post-human faction, and that's the Enforcers.
Enforcers, yeah.
What do you know about the Enforcers?
Enforcers, from my understanding, that they're more of the muscle of the council.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so they basically, so the council wants to enforce something, and because the council is kind of the governing kind of ish faction, sort of, or not faction, but the one overseeing everything. And if they're unhappy with something, they need some muscle, which are the enforcers, which are a kind of combination of a lot of resources from different corporations to help them enforce whatever they need.
Exactly. I'm contradicting myself a bit here because I said the GCPS as a whole doesn't have a standing army, not in the sense that they have the human troopers, but as you said, the muscle, the enforcers are there for the Council of Seven. They are completely obedient, they are genetically enhanced, they have the best armor they can get, which is interesting because the power armor from the enforcers comes from a trade with the Forge Fathers, another faction. So they use the tech from an alien species, which is really advanced, for their best troopers. And that's, I think, one of the most intriguing points regarding these superhumans, because it's something really special to the Warpath universe, the trade aspect. It's about money.
Yeah.
And once again, the Council of Seven, they have the money, they buy the best equipment, and if the best equipment comes from an alien race, so be it. No questions asked.
Cool.
And they have also the best equipment from the corporations, so they are there to really sow terror and keep everyone in line, and
so that makes sense. That makes sense. The GCPS could be multiple different factions, but the enforcers are just the next tier up. I really like that, and it also gives some people a good way of choosing what kind of human army they want. Do they want the kind of crazy experiment people? Do they want the more hard-ass, badass, kind of militaristic kind of ones? Or do they want to be able to customize their own, corporation army, and they could go for the GCPS? And again, it also adds to the possibilities for future lore of you could take any of those factions and just grow on top of it.
Yeah, and it also makes sense to have infights between enforcers and GCPS, for example, or even GCPS versus GCPS, because there are the enforcers can maybe cull a corporation that is doing rogue activities, or two corporations fighting it over on the frontier. So it works also for the aspect of why do I fight my own faction. And I think that's also one of the a big drawing point. It really, really makes sense in this universe, the in-faction fighting, and there are tidbits everywhere for every faction that it works.
All right, well, we'll quickly go because we should really get through all of them. So, did we mention it before? What are the Forge Fathers? Explain them.
So I think the Forge Fathers are one of the classic tropes. They are space dwarfs. So they are sturdy, they are headstrong, they have good armor, they are a bit greedy here and there, so they are also one of the trade partners, one of the bigger trade partners of the GCPS, but they are really, really stubborn. So they have a really interesting background. It's the as I already said, like the trope of bit of Norse mythology in there. They have the mythology about smithing and so on. It's really, really interesting. Overall, they are technically really advanced, and they live for a long period of time. So they can wait out whatever the humans do and then get in there and mine resources. They are about mining, getting the resources out of the planets for profit and for themselves.
And it's actually quite interesting with that lore, because you do have the Brockers as well, which, if you were to compare it to the Panathor universe, you got Brockers are kind of like the Free Dwarfs kind of angle, and then you got the normal Forge Fathers with the dwarfs, and there has been hints of dark dwarfs. There's the Murakar, so Murakkir, and they're referred to as Dark Star dwarfs, which have been hinted at, and so that could be a real cool possibility that we could have some like a dark evil kind of dwarf faction out there.
Yes, the interesting point with the Dark Star dwarfs is they could be some kind of evil dwarfs, or they are just another aspect of free dwarfs. Because the Forge Fathers themselves, again, they aren't really ruled by one Dwarven Emperor, something like that, but they have clan lords, and they are structured in clans, and they have different takes. Some despise the GCPS and the humans, others are trading with them or ignoring them. So even in the Forgefather Society themselves, there are many differences. And then the Brockers are all over the place, and these Dark Stars just have a different culture, maybe a bit of a darker one. It's not really sure. There are many possibilities.
Yeah, and that's the exciting bit of it. And
Yes.
one day we might find out, but also, who knows? Yeah, who knows? All right, so we're going to try and not speed run the other ones, because otherwise we won't be talking about this forever. So we'll go to, how about more orders now?
So those are the orc types. And interestingly enough, they are mercenaries. They are really tough. They are aggressive. They like to fight. But it's not in a in a chaotic, dumb way of fighting for a fight's sake, but they are also great tacticians. Warfare is their trait. And they have one of the biggest impacts on the overall history of the Warpath universe with the Mandrake Rebellion. And what I really like is they are tough commandos. They are in it for the money most of the time, and they just, if you want something done, you hire marauders.
And there's actually a combination of different races. They're not just orcs, they're like goblins and hulks as well as another variation. I think hobgoblins are thrown in there, but they're just a smaller population.
They are usually all green-skinned ones, coming from the planet Gora, and all the species evolved differently, and they are as tough because the radiation level on the planet is higher. So, really, really cool faction.
Cool. All right. So next one, we'll go with the Asterians, which I know Chris loves them. So who are the Asterians? Because I always interpret them as like the elves of the universe.
Yes, usually they are seen as the space elves, if you want, but it's a bit misleading. Maybe they are a faction on the when they fight. Usually they fight with constructs, and those constructs aren't only robots, but they are also a bit of biomechanical, and they are the most advanced race from these factions, even more advanced than the Forgefathers. They look like humans, but with a bit slender and pointy ears, so that's where the space elf thing comes from. And their whole society and mindset and everything they do is about balance. So they want balance in this universe at all costs. And then again, there are hardliners who want to bring the balance to the universe by like killing humans and stopping the GCPS because they think they are too big of an imbalance. And then there are others who want a more peaceful or surgical approach. So a very enigmatic race, very advanced, and those bioconstructs they use or biomechanical constructs, so mostly mechanical, are really interesting.
Cool. All right, so we're knocking them down now. Okay, this one might be a bit of a challenge because I don't really know too much about this one. The Nameless.
The Nameless. The Nameless are an aquatic race. So, or races, if you want. So there are many, many species in the Nameless. They can be little squid things. They can be tough armored crab guys. There can be tentacle humanoids. And what's interesting is they aren't. They are also technically rather advanced, and they have a completely different look through the species. What's about the Nameless is the ones you encounter now in the GCPS when fighting them are from a sect. So some kind of religious zealots. But this sect, the Ul-Ur sect, is getting more and more support. So that's why it's escalating. The Nameless are coming and they want to aquaform planets. So they want to make planets aquatic. No, it's not. Maybe it's some religious reason, or they want maybe expand their influence, and as they are an aquatic race or races species, they want to conquer probably. And I'm really looking forward because the Nameless right now, from a lore perspective, but also from a gaming perspective, are more of these little fights, smaller fights, precision strikes, but with Epic Warpath on the horizon, we have the Nameless there, and they will be coming in full force. So that will surely change how they are treated in the lore and the universe as a whole. It looks like
I think that's going to be a big one for the
more
lore.
support. Yes.
Yeah, I think
they
Epic's
are gaining more support.
lore.
And we have the Nameless as one of the big players in the fight for Tertia Prime in the summer campaign, where they aquaformed Tertia in the end. So they pulled through. They are here, and they are here to stay. All
right. So that's something to look forward to, because I think that's going to be something. I think this year we're going to find more about the Nameless than probably any other faction. All right, we'll dive into how about the Plague? How about that one?
The Plague is maybe the major threat of the lore, or maybe was the major threat. There is another one now, but the Plague is something coming out of the Asterian space, or from the Death Arc. Maybe made by the Asterians. There are rumors. In the end, it's some kind of virus that changes people. That changes the DNA, makes them aggressive, makes them tougher, but has some kind of they have still some kind of alien intelligence to them, and there are different stages of mutation, and they are mindless zombies, most of them. They can operate technology. They want to spread the plague. They want to fly from one planet to another, and so on. And that's what makes them dangerous.
So would you say that they're kind of like the Flood from Halo?
Yes. That would be rather fitting in a sense. They have some the infection thing, and they have a sense of purpose to them.
Okay, so I'm avoiding asking too many questions, because otherwise we could just talk about particular factions forever. All right, so how about the Veer-myn? How about that one?
The sneaky ones. The Veer-myn, rat man. So you have giant rats, and those are also one of the more unique factions, I'd say, because they have a distinct science fiction look to them. They are mutated alien rats, and they are like everywhere. They have their big colonies in the GCPS, now also more and more in Forgefather space on ships. They travel a clandestine way in other factions, or in other ships, and they spread across the galaxy like a plague. They use interesting technology. Usually they scavenge for parts, but build their own style stuff. They have ray weapons, they have sludge thrower weapons, chem throwers. They also use mutations on their own to make bigger fighting beasts. They have a matriarchal society, so they have a blood mother usually at the top of their colony. So and they are fast and sneaky. So they are always a big threat to everyone.
So one question I've always had, is there an origin story about how Veer-myn actually exist, or is it this? Because they are very similar to Ratkin from Panathor. I mean, they even use similar models. I just don't know whether there's been an in-universe explanation of why they exist.
I'd have to look it up to to not make a mistake, but as far as I know, they aren't mutated rats. So they aren't rats from old Earth just mutated, but they are their own species. But it's not really known, because they are also, in many parts of the GCPS, they are a myth until they come out of the dark, out of the sewers. So it's still a bit clouded, but I think they are their own alien species, even if mutated, and not like rats that got mutated. Even though there are rumors in universe that they are.
Interesting. Okay, we'll leave that one there because I feel like that we could deep dive on that one. All right, and I think the last one that we'll go through is one that we mentioned before. Is the Rebs.
Mm-hmm. The Rebs. They are. Yeah. They are the rebellious. So the Rebs can be a bit like everything. They can be good people who want freedom and just throw off the shackles of the GCPS, or they can be straight terrorists. They are consist of many different species. We already mentioned that there are humans in there who don't want to suffer from corporation rule, but also many aliens, especially aliens from a few races where the sphere, their home planet, was destroyed, or the Indish, where also their home planet was stripped from the resources, and so on. So they are about civil unrest and bringing the fight back to the corporations and the GCPS as a whole.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be a Red player if they do release some new models. They look really cool. I'm really excited for them.
They are so diverse. It's fun.
Yeah, it'll be interesting diving into like all the factions. I don't know whether we'll go for one per episode, but I feel like we're going to be mentioning the factions throughout whatever we talk about. It's always going to be something dive in there. I think it's going to be interesting.
We will pick a few topics, maybe with the topics go through the factions that are in there. Maybe go make specific things for the factions. We'll see how we want to do that. But there's much to talk about. And I think we have 2 new factions we should mention at the end.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah. That's a good point.
They on their own factions. One is their own faction now, and the other also came just last year, so 2024 came out there. So we have the Night Stalkers and the Matsudan.
Yeah, I completely forgot
you
about
already mentioned the Matsudan. Yeah. You already mentioned the Matsudan. So those are, speaking of unique, those are really unique. Sumo space lizards.
Yes, with a very samurai kind of like naming convention and kind of style. I like it.
So they have big bellies. And
they're lizard big belly.
They are lizards with big bellies and then sumo samurai style.
Sadly, I'm going to have to make this comparison. They look like the lizards from the live-action Super Mario movie way back when, I think in the 90s.
Yeah, I know that reference. A bit. That's true. And they look a bit goofy, but I think it's a good combination of goofy and threatening. And this Asian samurai or sumo style, both of those in there, makes them really pop out, stand out. And they are all about honor. And it's really interesting because in a universe where the GCPS is trying to screw everyone over, every faction has their own dark secrets and motivations. Then there are the Matsudan, their motivation is honor. And they got screwed over by the GCPS, and they weren't happy about that one. So a cool new addition to the bigger universe. They were part of the Assyrians.
Yeah, they were erased for a while because I believe they were in Star Saga as well. So, I mean, they have been around the universe since the very beginning. It's just now
the first
appearance
the first appearance was in Dreadball as a team.
Oh, yeah.
Then I think in Star Saga as a mercenary or Tasora.
I've actually got a model. I'm holding that model right now.
And then after that, they got their own little faction release for Deadzone. And now, since last year, they are they are part of the Assyrians, which makes sense in universe. And now they got their full release for Deadzone and a bigger release as part of the Assyrians for Firefight, and then also for Warpath. Epic Warpath.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do with, and I think the whole or a lot of the other factions do need a bit of a refresh in terms of the models, but it's good to know that they're still looking to expand the Warpath, or I wouldn't say Warpath, Deadzone or Firefight kind of range as well. So it's good to see they're still adding more to it.
Yes, absolutely. And talking about adding more to it, the Night Stalkers.
Yes, Night Stalkers. So this is very much, we know them from Kings of War, yeah.
Yeah. So there isn't that much yet in terms of lore to the Night Stalkers in the Warpath universe. They are extra-dimensional horrors. They were they got into this universe by the experimentation of Mason Labs. They tried to make new jump engines, a bit Event Horizon style maybe, and through that the Night Stalker incursions started. And the Night Stalkers right now are really powerful because even knowing about them can make you dream about them, can having nightmares, and if too many people have those, the dimension, or they can manifest from their other dimension and an incursion can happen. So right now they are an extremely big threat lore-wise to the universe because they can spread so easily. So
you just think about them when they arrive.
That one will evolve. Yeah.
That seems a bit hacks though. That seems a little bit OP. God.
Yeah. Right now it's rather threatening. So I'm really looking forward to more lore about them, because right now it's more about their first appearance and the summer campaign where we got some bits. But it will surely evolve, and I think there will be some counter to them. Because otherwise they could just topple the whole galaxy.
So here's a question: are they the same Night Stalkers from Kings of War, or are they completely separate?
Good question.
We don't know.
They appear to be They appear to be in parts the same as the ones in Kings of War, as far as I know. They manifest a bit differently, but I mean, if you look at the equipment, of course it's because they are the same models, but it's about the nightmares of humans. And these Night Stalkers aren't armored. They aren't like in power armor or using power weapons or so on. So they could be the same because they use the same equipment, tactics, and units as in Penethor. So
okay. I'll be interested once the lore starts to expand. I guess we can connect the dots. They could be a future version of Night Stalkers, or they could be maybe they're a banished form of Night Stalkers. So maybe 200, 300 years from a current timestamp in Kings of War, they actually managed to banish the Night Stalkers and they actually end up in Warpath lore or something like that. I don't know. They could be. It'll be interesting to see once that's actually fleshed out a little bit of what Night Stalkers actually are in this universe. Even in Penethor, the lore is a little bit shaky. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Going forward.
It fits that it's not really well known. I think, and then again, I don't really. Personally, I don't need a crossover because for me, Penethor and Warpath are completely separate things. So we don't really need like a pushed crossover.
Cross the streams. Yeah, we don't need to cross the
just
streams
for the sake of it. I mean, we have crossovers in models. For Night Stalkers, it's extreme. We have it a bit for Veer-myn, but there is.
Let's not talk about.
There were some. Yes, some of the Veer-myn kits came to Kings of War and vice versa. So that's more of because the style is fitting for both. But it's not about like they are Redkin that then were sent to space or something like that. So yeah.
Okay, interesting. So we just had to put a little asterisk on that and wait and see. Are they included in the Epic Warpath? I can't remember. I don't think they are, right?
Night Stalkers?
Yeah.
No. We have 8 factions in Epic Warpath: Assyrians, Enforcers, Forge Fathers, GCPS, Marauders, Plague, Veer-myn, and Nameless.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. So Nameless is going to be the big one we're going to get. And we also got the anthology stories coming as well. That's going to be really good. And I do know Clem has been thinking about starting a Epic Warpath MUP show. So that'll be interesting to see awesome. Kind of his thoughts on that. That'll be really cool. If he gets around to doing it, I know he's been talking about it, and it'll be really cool for that to see. But yeah, I think that covers all the major factions. I know with Deadzone, you can go into the fire teams and so forth. So I guess that will be we'll park that for now, because otherwise, again, we'll be talking forever about all the different teams and so forth.
Yeah, but I think those that could be a special episode in itself, or maybe they go into an event we cover where they appear and so on. So I think we have enough to talk about in this universe, and we will go deeper into the factions, into also the connections between maybe some big players, being it factions or maybe big names. And I think at this point it's also a good drop to just say, if you have any questions, because we didn't cover any part you're interested in or so on, just ask them. Yeah, we want to know what you want to know. So
and even if we don't know a lot of it, just go. I would say join the Discord. Post in the Discord. We do have a Warpath channel that we can talk about the lore. Pop in any questions you want us to bring up. Send us an email at the Mantic Universe podcast @gmail.com. You can also join the Facebook group and just message out to us. And what the other things you can do? We've also got a Patreon there if you do want to chuck us a buck and help us with some of the recording software and so forth. Those are the different ways you can reach out to us. And really this is going to be an open forum. So we are going to obviously talk about things, and I think we've got a topic lined up for next time. We're going to talk about things that we're interested in, but if someone comes to us and goes, hey, can you guys just break down the Marauders for us, we will spend some time doing some research on that. So we're here to try and get people excited about the lore. But if there's a particular piece that you don't know a lot about and you want to know a lot about, just reach out to us on Discord or Facebook or however. Contactable somehow.
Yes. Do we want to spoil what we are planning to do next?
We might as well because we're probably going to do it regardless, because we've got it planned out.
It's the first episode we have to plan something, but we're as we said, we're open. So we thought we'll start a bit after this introduction. We'll start a bit a different way than maybe usually, and I thought that Nexus Psi could be a good starting point as a discussion topic, because many of the factions appear on that planet, or the conflict around that planet. Many things can be explained that are crucial for understanding the universe, and also it's something that was the first really anchor into the lore for Deadzone, and is still a major event until now in the universe.
Yes. So we're going to talk about the planet Nexus. Is that Nexus Psi? Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Nexus Psi. So if you've got any questions about Nexus Psi, flick us a message as well, and we'll dive into it. And again, send it to the Mantic Universe podcast. I think it's just Mantic Universe podcast @gmail.com, or just hit us up on Discord or Facebook, and we'll go from there. Cool. And have you got any final thoughts there, Claudio? Because I think we've been rambling on long enough for people's ears.
Yeah, I think perfect that we planned for it being shorter, but in the end it came about the time we thought it will be. It's how it goes. No, I'm really, really happy that we're doing it. Thanks, Dave, for getting the idea or reaching out to me. Because I think it will be an awesome series. There are obviously other really, really good and enjoyable lore tidbits and lore podcasts out there. But I think, hey, this universe deserves to have even more. And so I'm really looking forward to this journey.
Yeah, I see nothing wrong with talking about the universe even more. I mean, you know, the more we talk about it, the more different perspectives people can have, the more excited and intrigued, because that's what these are. These are just stories, and everyone has a different way of interpreting stories and seeing the universe. And this is our way of showing our side of that perspective. So there are definitely others out there. What's a good one? The Mantic Law podcast. That's a good one as well. But you know, if anyone wants to pop along as a guest as well, just reach out as well. Because this is all a collaboration, and we love just talking about the universe, really.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
Exactly. Well, we'll leave it there. So thanks everyone for listening. Speak to you soon. All right, see you everyone.
Bye.